Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back to the show. We are here with the director of Aletheia Marriage Counseling. Excited to have Jim Ramsey here joining us. Again, Jim is a licensed marriage and family therapist, and he's been licensed since 1974 in the state of California. Jim Ramsey, welcome to the show today. How are you?
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here.
And where are you from specifically?
Well, I grew up in California and moved to Montana when I was 33 years old in 76. And that I just practiced for a couple of years there in San Diego and then moved to Montana, Missoula, Montana, set up my office in 79 and been going since then.
Amazing. So you're offering counseling, you're saying online and in person, correct?
Yeah.
So where specifically and what states are you allowed to work in? How does that work?
Well, I do the Zoom thing most everywhere. People call me from all over the place, including outside the country. And then I have my opportunity to come do intensive weekend with me at my office at Placid Lake in the Sealy Swan Valley of Montana, which is about maybe less than an hour from Missoula. But I'm serving people from all over Montana and outside Montana.
Beautiful. And before we get into details and specifics about the types of problems, situations, hiccups that you're helping people with, I want to get to know you if you don't mind. I read that you grew up a very healthy family. There was 5 kids. Tell me a little bit about your background and all.
Yeah, my mom was widowed with 2 kids, and my younger brother was born the day after he died. And so she had the 3 of us, and then 2 or 3 years later, she married my stepdad, who had a son, and they had 4 of us, and then later on they had another son, so it made 5 of us.
Got it.
We were adopted by him.
Oh my goodness. Wow. I commend your mom. And tell me more about your childhood and how you decided to come down, into this field of helping others.
Well, I grew up in a happy home and did well and enjoyed high school, and then went on to San Diego State University. And I decided to study psychology. And in the course of doing that, I was amazed by the case studies that I read about, in the various books. People really live like that? They have those kind of problems? I was pretty naive. Grew up in a very natural, happy family. Everybody talked and laughed, but the more I learned about what's going on in the real world, the more I cared about doing something about it. And so I've been working at learning everything I can about couples therapy and being the very best couples therapist I can be. That's what I've been doing now for 50 years.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for being here and telling us a little bit about your background. And now, educational wise, do you want to share a little bit about that?
Education wise?
Yeah.
Yeah. San Diego State for 4 years, and then I went to Fuller Seminary, which offered a PhD in clinical psychology and an MDiv in theology. And actually, I got both. I got instead of getting a PhD, I got 2 MDivs. I got an MDiv and a master's in clinical psych, I should say. And that at that point, it was because I just want to help people any way I could. Maybe I'd be a pastor, maybe I'd be a counselor, maybe I'd be both. And as it turned out, I ended up being both my whole life. I was bivocational. I supported my family with my income as a licensed professional counselor. And then I had a small housing allowance of $1,200 a month for the entire 35 years I pastored the First Calvary Chapel in the state of Montana. And so I've been, involved both ways. But as a therapist, I'm relating to the Christian side as people want me to. But when I'm talking with secular folks, I'm not interested in trying to talk them into anything. I'm just trying to help them with their issues. So I'm mostly trying to help them with their marriage problems. But I am a Christian, and that informs my values and my.
Yeah. Well, let me ask, what is the website and contact information? How can we reach out to you?
Okay. Aletheia Marriage Counseling, ALETHEIA marriagecounseling.com. And you can call me at 406-370-3515.
Thank you so much for that. And we'll talk more about your counseling services and Christian counseling in just a moment. I wanted to touch base a little bit about some of the struggles and obstacles you faced in your life. I read that you had cancer, and some other things. Could you share that with us?
Well, I've been as healthy as a horse all my life. My youngest son got talking to me about colon cancer when I was about 40.
Wow.
And he harped and harped and harped about it. When I was finally about 55, I gave in and went and had a colonoscopy. The doc came in and said, you've got some polyps, but he says, you also got an ugly one. I said,
Mm,
say what? He says, well, you got cancer in your colon. And you could have pushed me over with a feather. I never, had any major issues really, health wise. And so they took the cancer out about a foot of my colon. Later, a couple of days later, they said, we've got some cancer in the lymph nodes, and so we're gonna have to put you on, chemo and whatever for I think it was about 9 months. Yeah, it turned out that did the trick. It's 20 years later, and I'm still okay. But it was kind of a wake up call.
ah, my goodness.
I just had a little talk with God. I says, if I die, I die. If I don't, I don't. And you take care of that. I just kept being as busy as I could be, and it worked out all right.
Oh, and is there any other obstacles that you want to share?
Well, when I was married 46 years to Debbie, we bought a motorhome, and I just retired from the pastoring the church, and we're
Ah,
going to, just do the counseling and do a lot of traveling and whatever. And we went up to see my brother up at Flathead Lake, and on the way back, we hit a storm. This is in April in Montana,
ah,
and there was about 4 inches of slush. I learned later on the highway. I knew it was slushy, but anyway, lost. I was trying to drive very carefully, but I lost traction and slid across the highway, and a truck hit us and killed my wife and her 93-year-old mother. And I woke up the next day in the hospital learning that that had happened. I still don't remember the accident. It was just a God thing that I was spared. Impact knocked me from the bucket seat and my seatbelts out into the back seat. I left it all. I was back there. Looked like I was trying to put my head through the back window when they found me. But I had no major injuries, so I had to ask God about that. What's
yeah.
this? There's a
Wow.
tendency, in a situation like that to say, well, why me? But it occurred to me, well, why not me? God's God and I'm his servant.
Mm-hmm.
And, so I just had another conversation. Well, I guess the questions really are what and how, not why.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I've just done what I could do, and God's really richly blessed me. I married a widower that was a teacher for one of my boys. She's a German teacher. She had lost her husband 3 months before I lost Debbie after
Ah,
42 years of marriage. And we've been married now 10 years. And so
wow.
I guess what I want to say is that God takes care of you. He knows what he's
There's a
doing.
plan.
Yeah,
Clearly, there's a plan, and
you got to live with it. Have a good attitude.
well, thank you for sharing these heartfelt, personal, stories. And at the same time, I love that you're able to realize the bigger picture here and how God and that bigger picture is out there watching out for us and directing us. And we have to be grateful and thankful for whatever He chooses for us,
That's
as
right.
hard as it is. And here you are now, you're saying, I know on the website, are you afraid you will never grow old together? Are you losing your close love feelings? Let's talk about that.
Well, I think a lot of people are. I think a lot
y-
of people are. And in
all
fact,
I
I
hear
think
is about is divorce, divorce, divorce. So
like 50%, and then the folks that have raised their kids and done everything they could, they find themselves just kind of looking at each other like strangers after the kids leave home
mm-hmm,
sometimes, and they don't want to split up their property, and they don't, but they're not as happy as they were before kids. People are very happy. It's just two of them having a good time, but there's a lot of challenges that come along, and vicious circles develop, and people become lonely, and we call it emotionally disengaged and lonely.
yeah,
And so probably one of the main groups of people that see me are people that really want to have a good second half.
mm-hmm.
And so we give them opportunity to learn what are the principles that make really close, connected relationships. And then we talk about what about the rest of our life? We learn new skills and make it work right.
Well, let's talk specifically now about the people you're helping. Are you doing one-on-one couples? There's retreats. There's a lot. So why don't you break it down for us about how the marriage counseling works? And also, you mentioned I've heard about Dr. John Gottman. Could you share a little bit about him?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, as I said, I decided to be a marriage and family specialist. So anybody
Yeah.
that does marriage and family, I've been on board with. I was with John Gray for a number of years, got his training and did his Mars Venus workshops all over Montana, and I actually did it for the military all over the United States and outside the United States, doing workshops for soldiers, so forth. So after that, I ran into the work of the Gottman Research and got on board with that. I've been with them almost 20 years now and fully certified therapist, kind of an extension of their operation in Montana. And the thing about the John Gottman work is all this research just makes a big difference because they now have identified why marriages succeed or fail and what are the interventions that correct the problem. So it's not a matter of knowing what's wrong, but knowing what to do about it. And then the Susan Johnson program, emotion focused therapy is based on work with attachment problems, and that's been going on for about 50 years. And I work with both of those uh, programs, to help people just to get to the bottom of what's wrong and get it straight because people can fix things, traumatic things, whatever it is. I work with young couples, middle couples, older couples. The oldest couple I ever worked with was about a month ago, 54 years married. I had them beat by 2 years. I have 56 years. But I really enjoy my work. I'll tell you what, there's nothing more fulfilling than helping people save their marriage and keep their family together. I mean, there's
Oh,
nothing more tragic than that in my book, It's terrible. And so I'm going strong and I plan to go strong as long as God allows me to.
oh my goodness. Well, let's break it down if you can, the process. If someone's interested in working with you, do you offer an initial consultation in a sense? How does that
Yeah,
work?
yeah. Well, people generally find me on the internet and they call me and then I set up an appointment for the two of them and do a Zoom session just to kind of get acquainted with them and have me have them tell me how they got together and the family backgrounds
Hmm.
and what it was like in the early years and what problems have developed over time and what traumas they've gone through and try to get a big picture. And then after that, I see them individually for a session, a 50-minute session on Zoom. And
Hmm.
they give me the background and their side of everything and how they feel and what they need and where they're coming from. I think it's really important that each of them know that I know them and I'm backing them and I'm not on anybody's side. I'm trying to help both of them understand their dynamics and fix them. In fact, one of the things you do in marriage counseling, get off of who's it. You know, realize there are situations that need to be fixed. It's not the people, it's the problems that develop. And so after that, I have them take the Gottman couples checkup on Zoom and then identifies all their issues. I take about a 2 hour session to go over all that with them
Okay.
and then you can see clearly. That's really an eye opener and it takes away from the you and who's at fault thing.
And
And
what are some of the things on the checklist I also want to ask as well?
well, for example, the Seven Principles for Making Marriage Work is a book that he's put out to interpret all this. And I use that as a marriage manual that I have them go through prior to doing intensive personal work.
Hmm.
And so they have the inventory, that's the diagnosis of the relationship. Then the treatment plan is 65 pages they send me that I've pretty well memorized. It's customized for everybody. Of course, it's not the same every time. But and then we go through that over the period of 2 or 3 months, going through the book and working on this. And they don't have to pay a lot of money for therapy because they're doing it themselves in the book. I'm an educator and a trainer. I'm not there to be there to have dependent on me for the rest of their life and see me, for years. That's not the idea. And so once they have they're confident, they made some good progress, then they come and see me for a long weekend. And boy, do we have a good time. They stay at a resort. They see me looking at a beautiful lake, private, just the three of us. And we have 2 hours in the afternoon. I see each of them individually, just get caught up before we do the whole weekend. And then on Saturday, it's 9 to noon and 1 to 5. And then next day, Sunday, or it could be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, depending, it's 9 to 5 again. So that's a total of 16 hours. Now, if they did that in traditional marriage counseling, that'd be one session a week for 50 minutes for 4 months.
Wow.
And there's a bit of a difference because now we have a diagnosis, we've got a treatment plan, there's been a lot of education going on, and now it's just nitty gritty dealing with anything and everything until everything's figured out. And we have a very high success rate. You can see why. I mean, it's all laid out.
Yeah.
So I'm keeping busy and I'm enjoying myself and I'm trying to train other therapists. I supervise people and help people get the point. They're hours in for their licenses and so forth.
Got it. Well, thank you for sharing. And let's remind our guests here how we can reach out to you. Could you share the phone number, website, any social media pages as well?
Yes, I'm on social media on Facebook, and also on you know oh, I'm blanking on the YouTube. I guess your program is on YouTube, so I'll be there. But I also have some things on YouTube video wise. So that I've got that going, and then my website, of course, is I gave you the address there. It's aletheamarriagecounseling.com. And then the phone number is 406-370-3515. And that's my
Beautiful.
cell phone. If you call that, you're going to get me. I don't believe in having too much in the way of answering services. I like to get to people personally. So if you call me, I'll talk to you.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. Now, for today, what else did you want to address with your listeners about, whether it be about going through the good times, the bad times, or talk more about the assessment process and maybe even give us some examples of the couples you've worked with?
Yeah. Well, I've worked with a lot of cases. I was looking at records of just since 1991 is 3,500.
Mm-hmm.
Then I had a lot of them before I started keeping computer records and so forth. I think it's probably around 5,000 or something that I've
Okay.
worked with. But as far as what I do now, mostly marriage. I like to work with the couples together, but I have a heart for men
Mm-hmm.
because three-quarters of all the divorces are initiated by wives and for good reasons. But the guys, it's just kind of, now what? I can't do anything right. I can't please her. Da, 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 they get they're real pitiful about it. And then they get mad about it. Either one helps. And so I like to coach men and help them understand that it's not as hard as it sounds. There's just some fundamental things they don't get. And women are wired differently than men. And contrary to the theories that everybody's the same, just obviously not the case at all.
That men are from Venus, women are from Mars, something. I
Yeah.
remember that comment years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was the fellow I worked with for years before working with the Gottman Institute. So all this is important. In fact, in the book I was talking about, the seven principles, John Gottman says, after all this research that we've done, really the majority of problems people have are based on misunderstandings. Go think about that one.
Sure,
It's
right?
true because we react. We're defensive. Especially men. We feel like we're doing everything and I can't please her and da da da. But men have to learn how to get on a woman's wavelength, and to some degree, women do too. We have different wavelengths. They're more rational. Women are more emotional, and we just have to understand that. And so, in the area of intimacy, you've got emotional intimacy, and then you got physical intimacy, and
Mm-hmm.
both are important. They're two sides of a coin here. And the men have to understand that for women, they want you to intimacy. They want you to know what's going on inside of her, what's she feeling, what's she needing, what's going on. And when I do that, then she feels more connected. She feels secure. The research shows that your friendship is the basis of your marriage, the heart of your marriage. The foundation of everything is connecting. And women are the monitors of connection. They know when they're feeling connected and they're not. And men are so busy focusing on other things, they don't even realize that
Mm-hmm.
they didn't kiss her goodbye 3 days in a row and didn't thank her for the French toast they had this morning. And, they don't know about all this nonverbal stuff that women are keying off of. And so, so anyway, a short way of saying I coach men. I also coach women personally.
Mm-hmm.
I want to set up forums where I can talk to as many people as want to. I can answer questions, and save money. You know, it's good to do the Cadillac version that I do. That's really wonderful. Some people can't afford it. So I'd like to do a thing online for many couples that want to. They can ask me questions. I can try to help them. Men forum, women forum. I've got structure for that. So I'm just trying to keep busy. I'm writing books. I'm doing audios and videos.
Writing books. Tell me about your books. I didn't know this.
Well, they're not published yet, but
Oh,
boy,
okay.
with this opportunity, get a little bit of publicity. Maybe I get some books done and get them out where people can read them.
Darn right. Absolutely. What type of books? About the relationship
Well,
process? About,
I don't want to do a manual for men and a manual for women. The title for the man book is The Hero Husband.
oh.
I think that every man wants to be a hero, but they're more into the big stuff like putting out fires as a fireman. And when the wife starts beeping at home like a little smoke detector,
Mm-hmm.
they look around. I don't see any problem there. The tendency is to go pull the batteries out of the smoke detector. But she's saying, look, honey, if we don't take care of this smoldering wire that's in the house, we're going to burn our house down.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want that to happen, but he's kind of wired to go do the big things. Go climb the 500 stairs in the tower to rescue people while his wife is crying at home. So we got to do both. You got to be a hero to your wife, and you got to be a hero for your kids. And anyway, do what you can to be the man you want to be. But they just don't quite know the whole picture, and that's why I try to help them. And I have good rapport with guys. I love working with guys. So, and women like the fact that I relate to a husband because I can understand femalese and help them to understand what they're trying to say to them. Translate into malese for them. So, yeah, I love what I'm doing, and I really want to help people. I'm not getting any younger.
I hear you. None of us are.
Uh,
Oh, well, in our last few minutes together, I just want to make sure we're covering everything it is that's important to you for our show here. What else did you want to add on to our listeners out there about why they should contact you or any tips or advice to help us?
well, I think all of us have to say thank you to mentors. I had wonderful parents, but I also had some therapists that were mentors. I mentioned John Gray, John Gottman. I've had
Yeah.
ministers and mentors. Rick Warren is one of the big influences of my life. He's the one that wrote The Purpose Driven Life and The Purpose Driven Church. This is a really good book. Um, my grandpa was a pioneer pastor and evangelist in Montana, starting churches in Montana. My wife's pastored her Baptist church for 60 years and never got over 100 people, but he taught through the Bible over and over again. These guys, have set a good example for me. You know, Work
Aw.
hard, do the things that are important, be trustworthy, be responsible, be loving, be forgiving, things that are really fundamental to our American culture, which are, of course, being threatened currently in many ways. But we need to get back to just being neighbors and caring about each other and doing the things that lead to a good, strong marriage for a lifetime.
Aw. Well, thank you. And you have the keys to success, right?
I think so. We got all the tools.
Yeah, you sure do. And normally,
You
how
know,
long does it take for someone to work with you? How long, do you get coached for?
it's a short-term therapy model, and that's the good news because it's educational.
Okay.
I'm not going to be seeing them once a week for months or years.
Okay.
I'm going to teach them and coach them, and when they're through, they know what they're doing and how to do it. They're confident. If they need to check back with me, I'm the coach. They can call me back if they get in the stump, and I can go over something with them. But no, we don't go on and on and on and on and on. We get her done, and I think people like that idea.
Mm.
So yeah, it's an exciting life. I love what I do, and it makes me sad to think of a lot of times the really wealthy, powerful people can't get help. They've got the
Interesting.
bucks and whatever, but nobody approaches them. I was in Europe, in France this past year,
Oh, wow.
uh, and I was in London when this came up. There's a earl there that's going through a divorce, I heard. And I thought, man, I wish I could get a hold of the guy and let him know. I'd be happy to help him.
Hey,
You
it's
know,
possible to be helped. And no matter what your social status is, my goodness, an
well,
Earl.
everybody
Yeah.
hurts, and the bigger the problems, the worse it is. It's hard.
Well,
So,
this is it's true. Everybody could use some help. And just curious, who were some of your mentors, would you say, in life?
well, I mentioned some of the ones in psychology, and I mentioned some in my private life. My grandfather, Mr. Smith, the pastor of my wife's church,
Mm-hmm.
Rick Warren, pastor of a church there in Southern California that started with 18 couples and ended up being, I think, 10 plus, maybe 20,000. They got lots and lots of daughter churches, over 1,000. Churches that are alive and real and really are worshiping and loving, and they grow. I mean, there's churches in America now that are just popping the seams because they're really reaching people. You know, that church there that Rick pastored, Saddleback, they've got more ministries for people of all walks of life in that town than the city offers,
Yeah.
and they're free.
Well, we
So
appreciate your time here helping so many and remind us again how we can reach out to you.
Well, give me a call on my cell phone. I'll pick up and answer you. That's 406-370-3515, or you can get on my website, AletheaMarriageCounseling.com, and contact me on the internet that way, and I'll get back to you and we can see what we can do to help.
Yeah.
But I appreciate this opportunity. I really do to get the word out. And thank you for your help.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to have you here and excited to talk again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day. To all of our listeners, please stay tuned. More of the shows coming up right after the break. Don't go anywhere.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.